Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the end talk of the AI division from ISI. And first, I want to, as usual, introduce a little bit our organizer, our Signals Lab for all of us and for people online that we are Social Intelligence for Generative, Networked, and Adversarial and Large-Scale System Lab, led by Professor Luca Luceri at UC ISI. And we're very new, so new that we didn't have a picture yet. Highly interdisciplinary and collaborative group. Our focus on computational social intelligence, studying the intersection of generative AI and networked systems and adversarial operations to address frontier challenges like trustworthiness and influence campaigns. So on to our very distinguished speakers for today's talk. I want to introduce a little bit about Herbert Chang. He is assistant professor of quantitative social science, computer science, and mathematics at Dartmouth College. He used to be one of us. He was a Forbes Under 30 honoree in science, and his research focuses on how emerging technologies impact democratic behavior. Very relevant to our lab. He has published over 35 peer-reviewed articles on misinformation and civic impact of AI. His work featured in the New York Times and Washington Post. So with the talk today, his talk today examines the 2024 US presidential election as the first major political event involving the sophisticated use of generative AI. This talk will explore different aspects on engagement, how AI-generated content impacts user engagement with policy, and novel methodology. So join me for a welcome to our distinguished speaker today.
First of all, I just want to thank you for the introduction and also thank Signals Lab as well. Thank you for being the sponsor today. I really appreciate it and having the chance to come back to Marina Del Rey. So today I'll be presenting on visual platforms and generative AI with a focus on political discourse and policy preferences during the last election. Just briefly, like David mentioned, I am an assistant professor of quantitative social science. I used to work briefly at MIDA as well. So recently I've been doing a lot of work in large language model workflows, machine learning, social network analysis, and increasingly experimental surveys as well. I was a PhD student at ISI here in 2019 to 2023. It's great to be back. This was one of my favorite moments during my PhD when during COVID, I went back to Taiwan. It was vacation and Emilio forced me to work on looking at Twitter bots. And so I was in the field. So when people asked me if I did any field work, this is what I showed. But yeah, so this paper went on to be super fun and super important. And it really helps structure the core research areas that I have. One of these is, networks of information on social media and online. The other one, networks of offshore finance. So some of the stuff I do also looks at how people hide money offshores and, helping us look at how to sanction, say, Russian oligarchs during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So today I'll be focused on this and really excited to talk about this. Okay. So before this, the 2024 elections were really the first to coincide with sophisticated generative AI. Before this, social bots and AI were sort of seen as information disseminators, right? They had these positions on social networks, and their main role and the main concern was that they would spread information. However, AI can now not just generate content, but generate it across different modalities. So in the textual mode and also the visual mode. So these are just some examples of these memes that were found during the election. So not so innocent cat memes, AI creations give life to, claims that immigrants are eating pets, if people remember this. And these are examples of Trump holding an AR on an orange cat and also hugging ducks and cats. And I'm not saying nothing about my own political preferences, but these are pretty funny, memes are effective modes of communication. Right? Similarly, you also saw these memes where both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were in, the uniform of the Communist Party, this is obviously not real, right? So these are just examples of AI-generated content that was quite viral during the campaign period. So this project was really driven by two big questions. The first is a question of extent. So just how much AI-generated visual content really was there? And how far did it spread? That's the first question we need to answer, right? Just how much and how far. The second one was, did it actually influence people's political behavior? It doesn't matter if it spreads far and wide and people click like, if it doesn't actually influence what people think and how they might engage. Okay, so this is a series of many projects. Today I'll focus on two, but the entire data set that we had is about 1 million posts from Instagram, 1 million posts from TikTok. We scraped like a few tens of millions of comments from each, and also engagement metrics on the billion scale as well. Okay. Today's agenda, I'll first talk about the computational social science portion, which is looking at AI-generated memes on social media. The second one, I'll talk about a survey experiment that we did to see if this actually impacts people's voting behavior. And the third, which is sort of an Easter egg, is like the next step. So outside of social media, how might LLMs impact people's belief? Okay, cool. So first, what visual content was there and how far did it spread? So the first paper here I'm presenting is titled "The Meme is the Message, AI Visuals Media Political Information in the 2024 United States Election." This is coming to ICWSM 2026, so we'll be back here presenting this again. So hope to see you here as well. So even though that AI-generated images are sort of a new phenomena, we do have some existing frameworks to understand this phenomena, right? Even though it's a new thing, what are some good ways to look at this? So the political poster is actually a really interesting framework to look at this. This is a poster back in around the end of World War I that was used to recruit Americans to participate in the war. And then somewhere along the lines of political posters to mobilize, we went from this to this. So like internet memes. Richard Dawkins sort of coined this term. A meme refers to a concept, behavior, or information that spreads person to person. And the main analogy here is that they are like genes. They replicate, they mutate, and they evolve between people, right? And so when the internet came about, everyday users didn't just consume media, but they could also create it as well. So it's no longer like a clear supply and demand of information. It's like everyone is a creator and everyone is a consumer as well. Okay. This has political implications. So for instance, in the 2017 UK elections, there was an unprecedented youth turnout. A lot of this attributed to the use of memes. Okay, but what about the introduction of AI? So what AI does is, instead of having memes being spread from person to person, it's actually crazy that it's so high and you can still hear it. AI basically bifurcates this process of transmitting between people and person to person. So I guess the thing here is AI bifurcates the supply side, where instead of just people creating content, AI now produces it and people curate it, right? So this is just sort of a theoretical, AI basically bifurcates the supply side of things. Okay, so two guiding questions. What are the elements that generate the greatest level of engagement? So just what are the things that create the greatest virality, right? And the second thing is, do partisans or people that are Democrats or Republicans, do they use generative AI differently, especially in regards to positive and negative campaigning? Positive campaigning meaning like, I'm campaigning in support of my candidate, and negative campaigning being like my campaign strategies to attack opponents. Okay, so just a little bit more details about the data source. We used both CrowdTangle and Meta Content Library to collect data between April and November. So this is basically 7 months before the election and basically like a week after. We then used OpenAI API to zero-shot label. So we took the images and we labeled the different elements of these images. And we also utilized the OpenAI gave us access to the provenance tool, which outputs basically a probability of whether an image is AI generated or not. It's like a two-dimensional probability, and then we did some subsequent analysis on that and validation as well. This is just an example of the zero-shot labeling, where we gave it a prompt, like, you are a political researcher, this is what you should be doing. And then we also gave it a ton of different categories that we wanted to extract, like, does this mention elections, does this mention war, does this mention foreign policy, this type of thing. So by doing this, we basically extract a lot of columns that we can do in our regression. And overall, this achieves about 78 to 95% accuracy across the 12 categories that we were interested in. Okay. Great. So here are just some examples of the data set that we were able to extract. So these are basically how generative AI can be combined with memes. So this is like a back to the great again meme of Donald Trump. Some of my students have not watched Back to the Future, and it makes me very sad, but that's okay. So this is like a positive campaigning, image. This is also positive campaigning, and this is 100% AI generated. You can see the arm growing out of this person's head, right? So this is very much AI generated. And this is probably my favorite one, like Joe Biden being prepped for the presidential debate as a cyborg. Negative campaigning, obviously. So these are just examples of how Gen AI can be combined with memes. To distinguish this from some of the other visual content, what we have here is basically a traditional meme. So this is Kamala Harris. Oh, sorry, this is like Queen Elizabeth the First. This is just a portrait, and then Kamala Harris has never given birth. However, will she manage to lead a country? So this is like a traditional meme. This is what we were used to and created. And here we have another image of Donald Trump with a rainbow tongue in the Pope's uniform and an orange gun. Like, I don't understand what this means, and it's kind of ambiguous. The point being that you can have memes that are not AI generated, and you can have AI generated content that sort of rejects any type of memification or any particular meaning. Okay. Great. So this is really the big result. Memes are the main format that generates virality, and actually AI generated content doesn't diffuse that far. So the x-axis here is we basically ran the simplest thing we can do after log transforming the virality metrics, particularly likes and comments. We ran an OLS regression. And so the x-axis is basically the coefficient is the increase or decrease, the virality, and the y-axis is the variables. So naturally, the follower count matters the most. The bigger your network, the more people will see your content, right? So control for follower count, this is the first thing we do. War is the most viral topic. So the conflict in the Middle East was one of the biggest issues during this time, and therefore, generate the most virality. What I want to bring your attention to is that the meme format is like pretty positive. It's the third most viral, whereas the AI generated one is negative. Yeah. Yeah.
So is it memes or is it just images in general generate more virality? Are you able to control for that?
These are all images. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it just the case that image is more text and memes sort of just reflect that, or is it just memes or non-meme images?
Mm-hmm. So this is on Instagram, so every post is an image. So the entire universe is image. Is that answer your question?
If you were to compare images to text.
Yeah.
Okay. Memes as a format generate the most virality. What are you comparing against? Is it against text?
Yes, just normal. It's like photos that are not image. So meme and not meme. Okay, yes, exactly. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
Can AI generated become a topic? So
Yes.
what if an image that is AI generated and it pictures a war? So where should we put it? Is it a war or AI generated?
So later on, I'll show some results with interaction effects, but this is basically just the simplest regression model that we can make. So some of these things will be co-occurring. They definitely will be co-occurring, right? But the main idea here is that they don't have a lot of their VIF is low. So the idea is like they're not collinear. So we could do this sort of idea.
Because I think like war or religion is about the elements of the image, but AI generated is about how the image is generated. So can it be in the same y-axis?
Yes. Yeah. So the idea here is like followers is not related to the image at all, right? It's just a control. So if you wanted to create macro categories of this, it would be like followers is just sort of a control of how many people you have. Meme and AI generated, I would say, is more like a format of the image, right? And the other things are topical related, like topics. Yeah. So this an analogy in like say text analysis would be like topic and also like sentiment, and you could